Our first step is going to be place a bottle cage because it's the best guide and the easiest guide to use to locate where your bottle holes are going to be for fixing the bottle cage on. Take a Sharpie marker, make a small point. It doesn't matter where as long as it's fairly centered what you're going to do. So make a couple of points on there and you can see here now you have a guide. If you're going to use an existing hole, then just mark the extra hole that you need to make. Next up, we are going to take a 1/16 drill bit and drill a pilot hole. Rather than trying to drill it with a full-size bit, it's easier with a pilot. If you need to use a punch to locate it, try that first. If you feel safe not scratching the paint. Enclosed within the packaging that we're providing for you, there is a specialty drill bit. You're going to use this drill bit to create the sizes. This is a specific size, so this is so that the rivnut fits in there snugly. It's going to be an extremely tight fit. Before trying to place the rivnut in, you can test fit and see if it's going to press in place. Don't press it all the way in because sometimes it's difficult to get out by hand and you can damage the rivnut. So just make sure that the beginning part before the knurled aspect will fit in there. If it doesn't fit in all that great, find a small round file and lightly file the edges of the hole. Normally burrs will prevent the rivnut from going in. This is the rivnut setting tool. It has to be in a fairly open position because if it's collapsed or anything like that, it's not going to allow the rivnut to be threaded onto the center post correctly. As you can see, we're threading the center post through to allow a good 6 to 8 threads of the rivnut to be engaged on that center post. If less rivnuts are not, or less threads are not available and it's not showing through like this, sorry, it's blurry. If it's not showing the center post almost all the way through the rivnut, you don't have it far enough through. If there's less threads there, there's a chance that you're going to pull the threads out when you try to set the rivnut in place. Instead of the test tube, we're actually setting one in a bike that's being built right now. You can see how it's easy to push the rivnut with the tool all the way in. Make sure before you even squeeze the tool that it's fully seated against the tube. If it's not all the way in, it will not set the thing in place properly. So once you have it seated, go ahead and start squeezing the tool, and you're going to want to squeeze it until it's almost all the way compressed. Once that's done, go ahead and unthread the center section, reminding that it's a good 8 threads to get it out. Again, to set it in place, it's going to look just like this. You compress it. It doesn't take much. It's an aluminum piece that's going in there, so it should compress fairly easily, and you should be set from there. And once you've done that, you can see, is it loose whatsoever? Set the rivnut tool back in there and compress it one more time. Okay. These are the way the rivnut should look in there. On this, which is a down tube, it's going to have the flush sides where it's sitting correctly. The edges tip up a little bit. If you wanted to take like a ball peen hammer and hammer the edges down to make it look flat, that's up to you. What you're going to be provided is these specific pieces. This is the rivnut tool. You have a drill bit, and then there'll be 2 rivnuts here. Sorry about the blurriness, but the 2 rivnuts are there. They thread onto that center post and allow you to set that. The worst case scenario, if you set one improperly, a larger drill bit will allow you to drill just the edge of that rivnut out and perhaps be able to get it out of the frame.